Yeah.
Welcome to today's podcast. Today's podcast, there will be no edits.
Walking with the big dog.
You'll hear every
Walking with the big dog.
pause,
Walking with the big dog.
scratch,
Walking with the
sniff,
big dog.
pen dropping, neighbors yelling, planes flying over, whatever's going on out in the world. And there is no out there, and there is no in there. That whole non-separate focus, which is a reality in life after awakening that I found out about. Non-separate. I think that was one of the hardest adjustments to have to make, was having a mind that had sort of rewired with the dissolution of the ego, and by that meaning the childhood ego that is, it's an overlay in the mind. And so it's an imaginary overlay of thought, of ideas, of who, what, when, where, why, how, the past, the future, everything that really has to not do with the present moment. And so one of the clear demarcations of life before and after awakening is the loss of this overlay of the ego. And it takes a while. And there's pain associated with it, and pain that you can feel in the body when dealing with the dissolution of this aspect of the ego. It's a big topic. It's a very big topic. Yeah, awakening is tough. It's not easy. It can disrupt your life in a manner where you lose everything. And you lose everything. I shouldn't say you lose. It can disrupt life to where the individual can lose everything and gain everything simultaneously. And so adjusting to life after awakening, after the losses, and the continued challenges that take place can be very difficult, because it's really kind of square peg round hole type of situation where you are now, correction, not you are, where the individual has to learn how to live, relearn how to live for the first time without training wheels. And it takes a lot of lessons, a lot of pain, and a lot of confusion, a lot of supernatural activity. There's a lot that goes on in awakening. But eventually life goes on, and the individual has to step out in the world Or not. Maybe that's not the role. I mean, maybe the individual doesn't step out into the world. Maybe the individual is crippled, or physically challenged. Maybe the individual has cancer, and has to learn how to deal with that. Maybe it's not just about stepping out into the world. Maybe the individual is confined into a space where isolation is being dealt with. The scenarios can be spun in any way. There's no one way to spin it. One of the concerns that I had about doing a podcast was I still use and incorporate the word you, and I say you instead of I. And one of the concerns that I had was making sure that my language was proper, and in line with my post-awakening ethics. And one of those being not to include other individuals or speak for other individuals, which is a part of the pre-awakening programming, or at least you become aware of it. I became aware of it in awakening. Yeah, that's another very big topic. That's a big topic. And when I go back and listen to this podcast, I'll make a note of the topics that come up, and we'll just continue to focus on those topics. See, there's the use of the word we, and we'll just continue to focus on those topics. I have to remember that it's me, I'm speaking, and not to speak in terms of a you or a we. The use of words is very powerful, and the story of the individual and the way that the story interacts with the other stories, and the other stories being the other individuals. The way that words are used is very important. And the way that words are used can engage or disengage that individual for some type of energetic exchange. All the while, keep in mind that we're not separate. Nope, correction. That it is evident that this entire dimension, this realm, this world, all that is visual is not separate, and that separate topic will continue to come up. And the language surrounding that topic can be and will be very confusing. It is one of the bigger issues that an individual has during awakening, is all of the feelings associated with materialism, where the mind had been attached to the objects of separation. And the adjustment that has to be made after that, and where the individual can get really confused or lost in emptiness They say there's this feeling of emptiness or the void, or a feeling of falling into a darkness. That's really just the awareness kind of moving around in the new free open space in the body. And there can be lots of words used to describe that, and that can be a very, very, very confusing time, and oftentimes the individual will seek an understanding for what's happening when the mind is readjusting to life after a shift is taken place in the brain, that there is a clear demarcation of life before and after awakening. And it's one thing to note that because there are no separate things, the thought stream in and of itself flows freely and unencumbered like a stream. And ideas or thoughts of separation, ideas of a past, or a future, or fear, or any ideas associated with feelings of separation can cause pain, discomfort, confusion, sadness, all sorts of stuff. And I've found that never really goes away. And it is difficult. It does invoke an emotional response in the body. Is that constantly dealing with some type of pain as a result of being juxtaposed in two different worlds is very difficult. It's very challenging. And who knows, maybe from this show or from this podcast, that leaving a little bit more of a historical perspective of awakening, of before and after awakening, might help some or assist some individuals along the way to really just to not be so alone with it. Loneliness and awakening and enlightenment thereafter is also a big deal. And the desire to seek unity with other stories, other individuals, is very powerful. And that continues. Or that has continued. All right. This is not a professional show. This is not polished. A friend of mine says that you can polish a turd so much and it's still a turd. Well, it's all a big turd. And I'm going to keep polishing it just a little bit at a time. And but in the end, it's still a turd. And in the end, this is still just a very amateurish podcast. And there is no intention or desire to change what is going on. All things will happen as they happen, and the podcast will evolve as the guests evolve, and we'll take it guest by guest, story by story. And there will also be live music, live recordings of creativity of not only myself, but friends and members of the show as well. So, that being said, thank you for joining the first part of That's a Big Topic. And we'll take a break. See, there we go. And we'll take a break. It's automatic. The inclusion of a we is automatic. And that's been ingrained for this entire lifetime.